Chapter 432. The law as regards the blessing to be made over the examination for chametz. So, Berurah chametz. Number one, before one begins to examine for chametz, he should say a blessing with the wording Asher Kedishanu Tzivanu al Berurah chametz. Who has sanctified us with his mitzvahs and commanded us over the disposal of chametz. If one began to examine for chametz without having said the blessing and he later realized this, he should say the blessing then, as long as he has not yet finished the examination. One must take care not to speak between the making of the blessing and the beginning of the examination. It is desirable not to speak of other matters until one has finished the entire examination, so that one will devote his attention to examining all the places into which chametz is brought. Right. Focus. Number two. One may examine several houses with a single blessing. If the head of the household wishes, he may get members of his household to stand near him when he makes the blessing. They may then disperse to examine for chametz, each one of them in his own area, relying on the blessing which the head of the household made to serve for their obligation to make the blessing. The gloss, it is the practice to place pieces of chametz in a place where the examiner will find them in order that his blessing will not have been in vain. That's very important. However, if one did not put such pieces down, this will not prevent the blessing being of value, as everyone has in mind when he makes the blessing to dispose of chametz, if he does in fact find it. Chapter 433, the laws concerning the examination for chametz. The examination for chametz must be done by candlelight and not by moonlight. If one transgressed and did not examine for chametz on the night of the 14th of Nisan, then when he examines it by day on the 14th of Nisan, he should not examine by sunlight but by candlelight. So turn the lights off, stick and use a candle. As for a veranda which has a lot of light, if one examined it for chametz by sunlight, that's adequate. The same ruling applies opposite the skylight of a room. Number two, one may not examine for chametz by torchlight, but must do so by candlelight. One may not examine for chametz with a tallow candle of any kind or with an oil lamp, but must do so with a wax candle. The candle must be single, but two candles together, even if they intertwine, has the ruling of a torch. In other words, one candle, one wick. One must examine all the places, number three, with respect to which there are grounds for fear that chametz may have been brought into them. Therefore, all the rooms of the house and the lofts require examination, since occasionally someone goes into them with bread in his hand. On the other hand, storerooms for wine, when one does not avail himself of the wine, and likewise rooms where straw is kept in similar places, do not require examination, like where if you're keeping wine in barrels in storage for years. The holes in the walls of the house and the projections which jut out of the walls, which are not very high, not very low, are required to be examined for chametz, but those which are so high that a person's hand does not reach there, and those which are so low that they are less than 3 handbreadths from the ground, are not required to be examined for chametz. Number 5, the roofs of a hut and a tall cabinet are sleeping roofs. For this reason, these roofs are not suitable for any use. Therefore, they do not need to be examined for chametz, even if they are inside a house. Number 6, a cattle stable is not required to be examined for chametz, since if there was any chametz there, the animals will have eaten it. Good point. Likewise, a chicken coop is not required to be examined for chametz, since if there was any chametz there, the chickens will have eaten it. Similarly, the middle of a courtyard does not need to be examined for chametz, since if there was any chametz there, the ravens and other birds which are found there will have eaten it. The above ruling only applies where one is in doubt as to whether or not there was chametz in these places, but it does not apply if there was definitely chametz there. Gloss, on the other hand, it is stated below in sections 445, paragraph 3, which we'll get to soon, that it is permitted to throw away chametz in a place where birds are to be found. Follows that one is certainly not required to dispose of chametz there, even when there is definitely chametz there, until after the time has arrived when it has become forbidden. Number 7, when there is a hole in the dividing wall between the home of one Jew and the home of his fellow Jew, each one should examine it for chametz as far as his hand reaches, and may nullify the remaining chametz in his hut, and this is adequate. When there is a hole in the dividing wall between the home of a Jew and the home of a non-Jew, the Jew is not required to examine it for chametz at all. This is because there is a fear that the non-Jew may conclude that the Jew is employing witchcraft against him. The Jew will thus come to be in danger. Wow, that's what's the word? Got the word. It's about time. Starts with P. Chapter 8, number 8. If the holes of a wall were used for chametz and the wall collapsed and formed a heap, then even if the heap does not have a height of 3 handbreadths, which is the range of a dog's digging, is unnecessary for chametz to examine for chametz underneath it. Since examining a heap involves danger from a scorpion, and scorpions are common in heaps, we are afraid that after one has completed his examination, so that he is no longer occupied with the performance of a mitzvah, he may search for a needle which he lost and will come to be in danger. This ruling only applies generally. If, however, one knows that there is chametz underneath the heap, and if the chametz does not have a height of 3 handbreadths over it, he must take it out of there with a hoe and a pick in such a way that there will be no danger. If there is a height of 3 handbreadths over the chametz, he should nullify it in his heart, and that is adequate. Right. Number 9, in a cellar where one arranges rows of wine casks one next to the other until the entire area of the cellar becomes full of casks, and then arranges again other rows over the bottom rows until the ceiling is reached, the ruling is as follows. It is unnecessary to examine more than the highest row and another row below it. What is meant is a single row along the width of the cellar and a single row below it, i.e. one is not required to examine the casks over the entire area of the cellar, but merely the highest row, which faces the ceiling and the entrance, and another row below it. Number 10, synagogues and Batei Midrash are required to be examined for chametz because the children take chametz into them. If someone sweeps his room on the 13th of Nisan, having in mind to examine it for chametz, and dispose of the chametz he finds, and he is careful not to bring chametz there anymore, he must nevertheless examine the room for chametz on the night of the 14th of Nisan. The gloss. Everybody must sweep his rooms before the examination. The pockets or sleeves of garments into which chametz is put occasionally are required to be examined for chametz. Right. In other words, do your cleaning before Biur Chametz, not after Biur Chametz. And that is, well, not during Biur Chametz. That's the end of 432 and 433.